there's a lot of talk about these mandates from the voters, and I think um, I'm going to respectfully disagree in part. There were a lot of measures on this ballot. And one thing that we know is that people tend to vote no when they don't understand or when they're overwhelmed with kind of what's before them. So I don't necessarily see this kind of mandate per se existing. I also don't know how that reconciles with the fact that I was the top vote getter in the history of the city, and am very pro housing and have been unabashedly so. So what I do think is very clear based off of the communications that we've received from what I've heard from public speakers and what I've heard at various forums is that there's a lot of confusion around what people thought they were voting on. So I do hear that a couple of things. One, that people don't really understand the RHNA numbers. They don't understand the housing element. They don't really understand what the charter allows us to do or not to do. They don't understand how different developments have come about or the density, how we've gotten the density where we've gotten it. They don't understand how affordable housing is funded. They don't understand what the process is when we actually go through approving various projects. So I think that what's very clear to me is that we do need to have these informational sessions, and we do need to have a number of meetings, and we do need to bring people along and have these conversations. What I don't want to do is to talk to the ideologues who are going to create a scenario that's essentially just infeasible. And I think that there's a few issues that have been presented that I am concerned about. So I do think we should have a conversation, for instance, about how does affordable housing get funded, and if we want to say here we're going to do 100% affordable, what sort of bond would we have to do or measure would we have to do and fund locally, and how would we go about doing that, and what is the public support for that? So that might require a little polling, for instance. I think we need to have a conversation of if we follow the charter, and I want to be very clear that I do not intend by any stretch of the imagination to violate the charter. But if we follow the charter in the purest sense, what does that give us? Where is the density? What does that map look like? And if that means that we lose commercial and we lose park and we lose these other things, what does that mean? Because I think that it's very disingenuous to say, where's all of our job creation? But hey, you can't have housing density. You can't do these other things. We have to talk about these things, not in silos, but as they all come together. And frankly, saying that we're unique because we're an island, Manhattan is an island. Please, people, let's stop talking about we're unique because we're an island. San Francisco is a peninsula. They have bridge access and limitations as well. I think we are looking at safety. That is one element. We're looking at transit. We're looking at the environment. We're looking at a number of different things. But we have to look at them all together as a composite. This isn't a situation where we get to be climate deniers or say that science doesn't matter. We have to look at what we know to be true, which is that the population has grown, that the demand is here, and that regardless of what happens, the fact that we have been planning essentially through ballot box has gotten us into the hole that we're in. We are here because we have voted on these different things to stop. And finally, I've heard a lot about we need to represent Alamedans and we need to ask for these numbers to be lower. I don't just think it's about finding a way, as Andrew said, to justify the reduction. I think it's also about thinking about the unintended consequences. I am very concerned of this NIMBYism that is saying, I am such a NIMBY that I don't want a few hundred units in my backyard. Go ahead and put them in my driveway, surround my property, put them at my front door so that I can't even get out of my house. Because these units are not leaving the region. We are talking about a composite of thousands of units then going along the 880 corridor, along the in Emeryville, in Oakland, in Newark, in places that we all traverse and that we all go to. And there are several members of this council who work off island or who have to leave the island for work. You're talking about impacting that sort of transit, impacting those emissions. I mean, there's huge ripple effects there. So it's not a zero-sum game, yes, for Alameda, but it does create these other problems. So we can't argue regional traffic and transit issues and then say, hey, it's just our few units, because it's not. It's regionally changing where these units go, and there's a huge impact to us. So I thank you for the presentation tonight. I look forward to continuing this conversation and trying to bring people along as we have it.